Good start. Okay. Okie dokie. And we have who here tonight? We have Andy Conroy here and Lee Levy, Tom Farkas and Daniel Sanchek and Steve Ferguson, reading from left to right and down. I don't see a sixth person. I do know that Marilyn can't join us. And I don't know about, there's Ben. Hi, Ben. How are you? Unmute yourself, Ben. There you go.
What if you can see me?
He's our sixth person, so if something happens to one of us in the middle of the meeting, we're all set.
Okay.
Yeah, terrific. Yeah. And I have a really bad cold. I am not imitating John Wayne. Pilgrim. So let's see what we got here. I normally read a bunch of stuff about who to contact and what the right link is and all the rest of that. I'm just going to mention the link and then kind of skid on by all that because I don't think it's helpful. There is a link, and the only reason I'm mentioning it is it should get in the minutes. And if anybody's reading the minutes, they know what the link is. https www.norwalkct.org/1913/meeting-notices. And as you move around inside of that area of the website, you can find other things as well. And it's quite handy. We start at 7:30 and we try to get finished by 9:30 or sooner. And we'll discuss later. Don't let me forget is that a different start time might be up in the air for next year, not this year. So let me call us to order. And as I've already read everybody off, let me do it again once again officially. Andy Conroy, Lee Levy, Tom Farkas, Daniel Sanchek, Ben Harpenter, and who else we got? I must be missing somebody. Steve
Ferguson.
Yeah, got him. And moving on, when we get to the first item on here, everybody but Ben is seated on the first item that has not been withdrawn. So item 2A, Mr. Secretary, you might want to read it, and then we'll deal with the administrative part of it.
Yes, I will. Hold on, get the papers in the right order. Thought I had them in the right order. Okay. Item 231116-02, Equity One, Norwalk LLC. Variance for.
You only have to read who and what it is rather than go through the staff recommendation.
That's fine.
So that item, I understand, Tammy, that they wanted to withdraw and come back in January.
They're asking for a postponement. Attorney Suchi represents item 1.
So the postponement to January, back to question, is that correct?
Well, I'm sorry, it's potentially December if we have anyone withdraw, but it will likely be the tentative date of January 18th.
Let me do this now. It's a little out of order, but of all the people we have here tonight, what's our meeting date in September? The 21st?
In December 21st, first day of winter.
So we've got December 21st as the date. Is there anybody in this group? I'm getting tired of that bell. Is there anybody in this group that can not make the 21st meeting of December? Okay, we can postpone to December then. I'm going to assume that we're going to have enough people. Even if somebody here suddenly remembers that they had a engagement party to go to, then, hey, we'll be all set. So with that, I move that we postpone the item to December ZBA. It's only 1st of December. All those in favor say aye.
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 We'll skip second. Then move on to the next item, Mr. Secretary. Equity one.
Okay. Item number 231116-02, Equity One Norwalk LLC. Variances for number of wall signs, 2 maximum, 5 proposed. Section 118-1294A, 1, ground sign letter height, 24-inch maximum, 28-inch proposed. Section 118-1294A2. Wall sign height, 20 feet from ground to top of sign, maximum 25. 20 feet from ground to top of sign, maximum 25 feet proposed. Section 118-1294B1, wall letter height, 36-inch maximum, 72-inch proposed. Section 118-1294B2, for new tenant Target in existing commercial building in business number 2 zone. Property located at 680 Connecticut Avenue, District 5, Block 69, Lot 56. Request: the applicant seeks variance for signage at Target, which will replace the existing tenant Walmart. Background: Walmart had received previous variances for number of signs, allowing 3 instead of 2, and increased height to top of sign. The latest zoning permits were issued in 2012 for wall signage, subsequent to variance granted in 2012 for height of to top of sign. At that time, only 2 wall signs were proposed and installed. Walmart's sign with 30-inch letters and Home Pharmacy with 18-inch letters. Analysis and findings. The applicant has eliminated the request for the increased ground sign letter height. Even the large span of the building, the proposed amount of 5 wall signs for Target does seem somewhat excessive. Staff would agree that adhering to a 36-inch maximum letter height and maximum height to top of sign at 20 feet is a practical difficulty based on the building's location from street and configuration of the building. Staff suggests the board consider restricting maximum letter height not exceeding 48 inches for the Target lettered sign and no more than 3 wall signs on the building. Mr. Chairman.
So I'm guessing those large numbers were for the peak sign that's highly visible from the road.
I would assume so.
So one more time, hearing this item is Conroy, Levy, Farkas, Sanchik, and Ferguson. And next time around, Ben, you're on the next one. We only have 2 tonight.
Can I interject? I'm not sure how to handle this. We have Keith Lyon dialed in as a attendee. So just wanted that to be noted. He's our board member,
Okay.
for the record.
Thank you,
if I
Tammy.
can-
I did dial in. You weren't able to hear me. I think you have a quorum without me. Is that correct?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, then I will mute myself again.
You're gonna hang around and listen?
Yes,
All right, now we'll get to a point later tonight where we vote on chairman and secretary. You're gonna be there?
yes, that's why
Okay.
I'm going to stick around.
Okay, yeah, only the regular members can vote on the chairman. So it's helpful to have a few regular members actually here tonight.
Absolutely, Andy. Yep.
Okay.
Thanks.
Terrific. So moving on. No, that's fine that you jumped in. Attorney Sachi is on board. Did you get your dog under control and are we ready to roll?
Yes, but I don't have this matter for Target.
I thought you did. Yeah, it is not that you have every matter to come before you.
Thank goodness for you.
Who does have it?
Mr. Chairman, that would be myself, John Schmitz.
Hi, John.
May I proceed?
John, sure.
All right, great, thank you. Yeah, so good evening. For the record, my name is John Schmitz. I'm a civil engineer and a project manager with BL Companies, 355 Research Parkway, Meriden, Connecticut. Represent the applicant, Equity One Regency Partners. They're the owner of the property. Also joining me tonight is Kevin Kane, our sign installer, as well as Allison Mathern and Jeffrey Taylor from Target. I just want to give you a brief background of where we're at right now at the project. So obviously, the building located at 680 Connecticut Ave, Route 1. Currently, the tenant is Walmart. They're vacating the space, and Target will be signing a lease to move into the space. They'll be making
John,
some. Yes.
Did you identify the Target staff that's with you tonight? Not your own staff, but the Target staff.
The Target staff is Allison Mathern
Okay.
and Jeffrey.
What's her
Taylor.
job there?
I'm senior manager for real estate, portfolio and development.
Okay, great, terrific.
And John, I'm sorry, you said Jeffrey Taylor, but it's Jeffrey Butcher is Target.
I'm sorry.
Jeffrey
That was
Butcher,
the-
yeah, I was gonna
that
jump
the
in.
confusion.
Got it.
But if I needed to, I was gonna jump in. Yeah, hi, everyone. My name is Jeffrey Butcher. I'm a design project architect with Target. And I'm the architect on this project.
All right, great, terrific. And then moving on, John, go ahead.
Sure. So again, Target intends to make interior and exterior renovations, including a new facade along the building frontage. And where we stand with the project already, we've been through planning and zoning. We have our site plan approval there. We're awaiting a certificate of zoning compliance, and we look forward to submitting a building permit application to move things forward. Obviously, tonight we're here in front of you folks to discuss the signage variances that we're requesting. And I just wanted to make a couple of notes. We did submit a revised signage package a little bit ago, so a couple of the variances are no longer required. That would include the ground sign lettering height, which was previously shown at 24 maximum, 28 proposed. The revised plan we submitted now complies, so we no longer need a variance for the ground sign. We're now in compliance with that. Another change to the plans to try and bring them more into compliance is the sign letter height. The staff report notes that the 36-inch is a maximum sign or maximum height, and we had proposed 72 inches. The revised plan, we knocked that down to 64 inches, so we're really moving in the right direction there. And then we also have, as far as the number of signs on the building, I believe we only have 4 signs. There was a small logo that was attached previously to the drive up logo that's on the building, drive up lettering, and that was removed as well. So I think we've scaled back some of the signage that we initially asked for. So that's kind of some background on the signage, what we're looking for. We did receive the staff report and we've read through it. And we'd just like to take this opportunity to explain to you where we're coming from and how we'd like to approach the design. And just one more item of housekeeping. We did submit electronic copies of the abutter notifications to staff. I have the paper copies, happy to submit those as well if needed. But we do have, we did submit those, so I just want to let those did go out. Allison, if you'd like, I don't know if you'd like to take this opportunity to just kind of walk through some of the signs that we've got on the facade and briefly give a
Sure.
rundown.
Would it be helpful? Am I able to share my screen? Would that be helpful?
Yes.
I don't know if you guys
Yes.
have them. Okay, I wasn't sure if you had them in front of you. So let me go ahead here and share my screen.
Okay.
Okay. So this is, as John just mentioned, the most recent plan, which we had submitted after the initial one we submitted to the township, or I'm sorry, the city. So this is the revised target elevation. As John noted, we're obviously making huge changes from this upper Walmart facade here. Knocking down this big peak, creating a whole new entrance. I believe they had 2 entrances. and sorry, I'm not looking at the camera, looking at my screen here with it, but we are, so again, completely renovating the entire building facade to make it a much more prototypical looking Target store. It's 115,000 square feet, a little over, which is a little smaller than our full prototype, but still a pretty good size store for us. And so, you know, and you can see here, it's almost 490 feet long. So it's a rather large, you know, expanse and facade. So part of what we've done is breaking it up with these red accent panels in sections to break up the long, you know, linearness of the building. To walk through, I guess I'll start with the main signs. This is our standard bullseye logo. The reason where this is here, why this is located here, is this aligns with the center drive aisle that enters into the center, so that when someone makes that turn, they'll be able to see that that's where Target is straight ahead. To the right here is our main bullseye and logo and Target sign, obviously, which is our typical over the entranceway. So we have that. On the left here, obviously tiny in this rendering, is a CVS sign. We do have a CVS pharmacy within the building, and therefore we advertise that on the exterior of the building. Our fourth sign is our drive-up sign. While it is obviously a wall-mounted sign and it is illuminated, for us, it's more of a directional sign than it is a building or advertising sign. As you can see, it's fairly small, and it serves to direct customers once they're already in our parking lot to where our drive-up order pickup is located. So I don't know if you're familiar with this facet of Target, but we have a dedicated row of parking spaces where customers who've ordered online pull in there, alert the store staff that they've arrived, and store staff brings their orders out to their cars, and then they turn around and leave. So this sign is placed on the building in front of that row of parking spaces. So again, the customers that are coming into the parking lot from over here, you know, straight ahead of this single bullseye, are able to navigate their way over to the parking area for the drive up.
We're talking this far right side, and where I don't see any large lettering, it's a functional sign.
Correct. That's, yes, it's functional, directional. Yes, exactly. And as we noted before, the initial submittal we had and our typical prototypical signage does have a little drive up logo there, which we've opted to remove here because we know, again, we're already asking to be over, well over and above the code allowances. Oops, excuse me. Additionally, which is not part of the variance package, we are proposing this small logo sign on the side of the building where the building protrudes from in front of the other retail space, the home goods retail space. This space is Richards Avenue. And so, you know, it's our understanding this is a permitted sign, but that is also on the building.
Yeah, as far as I know, it is a permitted sign. Just curious, Home Good is being operated by Target or the owner, and therefore the sign isn't an issue?
They're totally separate companies, separate retail space. So I have no knowledge, but it's completely separate from Target.
So Home Good doesn't have a problem, as far as you know, with the Target bullseye on the side of their store?
Well, it's actually on the side of the Target. If you look at this, our space comes here and this protrudes out beyond their building.
All right.
So if you look at it
I
from
don't
the
see
street-
your cursor, so I haven't a clue.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me see if I can.
It's on the bottom left-hand side.
It's right here.
Okay.
So-
So it's the jut out after you've come in past Home Goods.
Correct.
Okay, so you
Yeah.
haven't sought to have a sign on the Home Goods side, rather.
No, we wouldn't have that right or ask for that. So yeah, if we were fully in line with Home Goods, we wouldn't have anything on that elevation. But because we have this section, apologies again, you know, that it's 53 feet that will protrude out in front of Home Goods. We've proposed a small logo sign there.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
And then, yeah, of course. The other thing we wanted to note is we have this order pickup sign, which is for customers who place an order, but then opt to go inside the store themselves to pick it up. It's usually a wall-mounted illuminated sign, but we, again, in order to reduce the number of wall signs we're asking for, we've changed that to just a window vinyl sign. It's basically like an opaque white, so it's not, it's not bright red or anything super obvious. Yeah, so I mean, this is very typical, actually, again, a little bit less signage than we would normally request, but it is prototypical based on the height and the length of the building. And so, we really hope you'll consider our request. We have like I said, our architect here, if you have any questions about, the facade design, any of that, or our sign installer as well.
All right, let me ask just a few questions because I'm familiar with the property. The property currently has a peaked roof kind of central to the building. Is that peaked roof remaining or is it gone?
It is not. So if you look at the screen now, these are directly
Oh, there it is.
correlate. So this is, the upper one is the existing Walmart facade,
Yeah.
and this is what it will be in place.
So you're kind of shifted over to the right. There's no.
Our main entrance, yeah.
And the Target's sign height is top of the sign is about the same as it was with Walmart, within 6 inches or so, I presume, from what I read.
I believe that is correct. I think it was 4 or 6 inches higher. Yep.
And then when you get over to the leftmost sign on the side of the building, you said that was, you're going to Hallmark CVS Pharmacy. That what you're going to do?
Yes, I know. I apologize. It's very, very small, but yes, it is a CVS pharmacy sign.
Okay. I think I understand what you're asking for. You want to finish up?
Okay. I'm done unless you guys have questions. I don't believe there's anything else.
Okay,
Yeah.
board, if you have questions, jump in.
My general impression is that I personally think it's an improvement over the Walmart facade. I think it's more organized. It's very linear, but that's what I would expect from, this type of shopping center, if you will. I'm not outraged by the size of the letters. I'd also like us to remember that Walmart did come before us a couple of years ago with a request for an additional sign for their drive-up pickup area that we rejected. But I think this is far more organized and, nothing that I can really get critical about.
Yeah, I think that was pre-COVID, and I think now that people are used to being able to drive up and have something brought out to their car as a matter of course, means that you've got to designate where that is. I know they have some standards that they're going to put out in the parking lot according to their site plan, but
Yes.
somewhere along the building, you got to give folks an idea of where that is, so they drive over to it without having silly high signs out in the parking lot. The only difficulty I have with the signs is the center sign seems to weigh a lot. In other words, when you look at the mass, it's a big sign, well identifying Target, and each sign to the side seems to be oversized. I'm not so sure that they should be that big.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Steve here. The traffic light on Connecticut Avenue, Allison, I don't know if you have your design out there, but when you look to the right, is that Target sign exactly where that traffic light is for visibility for your brand? Or is that past the traffic light on Connecticut Avenue? You turn into the parking lot to the right?
You're talking left or right?
the parking, if you're on the right side going southbound on Route 1, Connecticut
Yeah.
Avenue, is that entry to Target where that brand is, the bullseye is, or is that further to your left? I was looking at it just from a placement of the building and the sign. That's all.
Jeffrey Butcher, perhaps you can confirm that, but I believe, sorry, this is a little tough to read. I believe it is pretty much in line with that entrance drive, maybe a little bit to the right there.
Okay. Okay.
Isn't there a sign 6 label here? Isn't that the entrance sign?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you mean the freestanding sign?
No, not that one. I'm talking about on the building.
The building
itself.
sign.
So
It's
yeah.
a little bit to the right, it looks like, of the entrance drive.
Yeah. So I'm thinking like,
Starting
would it be
there.
a distraction? That's my main concern. And I don't think it will be a distraction. That's all. For the commuters going up and down on Route 1, Connecticut Avenue. That's all.
I don't know the exact dimension, but we are obviously set
Okay.
pretty far back from the road, and there's
Yeah.
a tree line along Connecticut Avenue. So I would not expect that, but understood the concern,
Okay. Thank you, Allison.
of course.
So I have a question, Tom Farkas here. So when you said 115,000 square feet, I think you said, does that incorporate the CVS pharmacy? And is that a bona fide CVS pharmacy, full service pharmacy with, I see there's no drive up capacity for that, no drive-in window associated with that pharmacy.
Yes and yes. It is full. It is within the building, and it is a full service CVS pharmacy. And no, there is no drive through for the CVS.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then your plan for the parking lot is to have a bunch of standards out there that identify the space numbers or something like that. right?
Yes, let me see here. Sorry, let me see if I could jump down to those. So these are these will be on the center line of the parking, the double parking row, to identify the spaces for customers when they pull in. Once they pull in, they put in the information into the app exactly which spot they're in, and that's how the team member knows where to bring the order. So
Okay.
yes, these
So
are
one is on one side of the sign, 20 is on the other side of the sign. It's just a single sign with facing 2 directions.
correct. Yes, one sign for every 2 parking spaces, back to back.
So-
How are the letters on the building, the signs on the building, going to be illuminated?
They are internally illuminated. Kevin, I don't know if you want to, you have a little more technical knowledge than or information than that.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Oh, hi. Okay, I'm Kevin with Commonwealth Signs. They are halo letters that shine up, shining up against the back of the building, I believe. Yes. Yes.
did we lose you?
No, I'm listening.
No, I mean, Kevin, did we lose Kevin?
No, he's doing some research.
Yes. They're just 6,500 LED wattage halo lit letters that shine up against the back of the building.
So they're internally lit.
Internally, correct.
Okay.
Internally or backlit?
It doesn't say actually.
They're specified as internally illuminated.
I'm sorry.
Okay, and the the word target, the letter height is what, as you're proposing?
In this rendering, it is 64 inches.
So what size is the target symbol?
The bullseye is, this one is 8 feet. As well, these both are 8 feet.
How about the one on the southwest elevation?
This is a 5 foot.
Okay, yeah, I see that now. Okay.
All right, so 8-foot high target symbol and 6-foot high letters. You know, you're not that far back from the road. not sure you need anything quite this big, even though looking at your drawing, your rendering, it is not unattractive. I'm a little concerned that it's gonna, I think somebody referring to it as shopping mall, it's gonna have that feel to it. I kind of wonder if you guys are gonna do some planting along the street or what? You know, not through the parking lot, not throughout the parking lot, but on the street side that would tend to buffer the parking area so that we don't have to look at 10,000 cars.
That would be a question for John, as that would be the
Right.
landlord's
So-
work. I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, so briefly, the answer is yes. So backing up, the main entrance, the sign that's over the main entrance, it's approximately 230 feet from the street line, from the sidewalk. And as far as planning and zoning went, there was a condition of approval that we increase some of the landscaping. You may note that there are a number of parking lot interior landscape islands that have shrubs. Those are being replaced with trees. We're actually proposing 21 new trees in the parking area, in those islands throughout. I think the tree line along the perimeter, along Route 1, is more or less staying the same. But the interior trees, there will be, like I said, 21 new trees. And in addition to that, you'll notice that in the elevation that Allison shared, you can see some planter boxes and trees that would be part of the, we'll call it streetscape, but the sidewalk frontage along the building, there would be some green space there. Obviously, that's a little smaller in height, but that'll also be there to provide some additional green space.
Yeah, so it's right up edge to the building. I was actually wondering about street side. So the parking lot would be partly obscured by the tree planting. If you go up the other, if you drive north from the current Walmart/Target location, about a mile to mile and a half, you'll see some ShopRite, Stop and Shop, and you'll see, particularly at Stop and Shop, because they were forced to be close to the road, that there's quite a few trees along the edge that don't completely obscure, but tend to make it a lot less industrial looking. That was what I was hoping you were going to do at your location.
And one of the issues we ran into is that for some reason or other, there's a sanitary line that runs behind the sidewalk. So a lot of the trees that are out there today along the back of the sidewalk are actually planted on top of a sanitary sewer line. Obviously, that could become a long-term maintenance issue, but it's something we did take into consideration about trying to put more trees in that area.
Okay, I hope you can come up with a solution. That doesn't mean going down into the sanitary line, but it would be helpful, whether it's a bush that has shallow roots or whether it's a tree or a combination of both.
Understood.
Anybody else with questions? I don't hear any. Has anybody other than some, I think, do we have some letters of support, Tammy?
So Allison, can you stop sharing your screen so I can?
Absolutely. Sorry.
Thank you.
Yep. Of course.
Okay, so we have some attendees. So if anyone, or are we opening
We're
up to
asking.
public?
Yeah, we're asking for those in support, and I wondered if we had any support letters.
Oh, no support letters, no opposition letters either, no inquiries.
All right, neither. Is there anybody in the community who has joined us this evening, wish to speak in support? See any raised hands, Tam?
No, to raise your hand, if you've dialed in, then you need to press *9 on your phone and then *6 to unmute.
I'm gonna wait 10 seconds and then we'll move on. All right, is there anybody who has joined us who wants to speak in opposition? Again, you know how to raise your hand, *9. I don't see anything. You don't either, right? So we're set.
Nothing.
So there's no need to rebut anything because there's no opposition. We're through with the presentation, and at the end of the evening, we vote. So it isn't going to happen right this second. So if you all want to get a cup of coffee and hang around, then they're all set. So we're ready to move on, Mr.
Thank you
Fisher.
very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So in this next one, we're going to sub in Ben for Steve. And in case one of you decides to bow out, which I hope you don't, we're talking about a different time of meeting, and we're going to discuss that later. Beginning next year, it would be 7 p.m. instead of 7:30. Anybody else that wants to comment on it before we finish the meeting, that'd be great. Who's not a member of the board? So with that, we have Equity One, David E. Keelan Revocable Trust, right?
Yes. This is item 23-1116-03. David E. Keelan Revocable Trust. Variance for front yard setback. 30 feet required, 1.3 feet proposed. Height, 39 feet to peak maximum, 43 feet to peak proposed. Number of stories, 2.5 maximum, 3 proposed. And lot coverage, 3,428 square feet maximum, 4,180 square feet proposed. Section 118-340C for proposed additions to an existing single-family dwelling in a B resident zone, property located at 16 Rocky Point Road, District 6, Block 36, Lot 61. Request: the applicant seeks variances to accommodate some expansion of this existing single-family dwelling. The home will also be elevated. The original home was built in 1875. Previous variances were granted in 1980 and 1991 for additions encroaching into setbacks, lot coverage, and lowest floor elevation requirement of flood zone. Analysis and findings. If the board grants the requested variances, coastal site plan review will be required. The attached memo from land use planner Amelia Williams notes the concern for expansion of the living space in the flood-prone area. However, the home is proposed to be made flood compliant. The scope of the current request is similar to previously granted variances. The age of the original home and the configuration of lots on Bell Island do contribute to the hardship and practical difficulties. Mr. Chairman.
Liz, this is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Zoning Board of Appeals. My name is Liz Suchy. I'm a partner at Carmody, Torrance, Sandak, and Hennessy. Our address is 1055 Washington Boulevard in Stamford. And our firm represents the owner of the property, which is the David Keelan Revocable Trust, along with the applicants, David Keelan and his wife, Christina Lake. Present this evening are John Grinstead. He's the Senior Project Manager of Workshop APD, the project architects on for this proposal. And Thomas Zoli is also of Workshop APD's principal architect with Workshop. On the line as well as Adam Serini, a civil engineer with Rocco V. D'Andrea. And lastly, myself. So thank you very much for listening to us this evening. A few matters of housekeeping. The application was filed with Department of Planning and Zoning on October 23rd. Notice was sent to the neighbors on November 2nd by certified mail, return receipt requested along with regular mail. The packet, sorry, hold on. Sorry about that. The packet with the domestic return receipt cards, which I received as of yesterday, was delivered to Ms. Maldonado, and along with copies of the letters for which green cards were not received, along with UPS tracking for those letters. That was delivered, and Ms. Maldonado, I believe, has it in the file. The applicants, as noted in her memo, are David E. Keelan and Christina Lake. The location of the property is 16 Rocky Point Road, District 6, Block 36, Lot 61. The property is in a B as in boy residence zone, and it is clearly within the coastal area management boundary, as it is bounded by Long Island Sound to the west. It is also bounded by Rocky Point Road to the east and other residentially developed properties to the north and to the south. The property is currently improved with a structure, the majority of which was constructed in late 1800s, with an attached two-car garage. There is a masonry stone of seawall at the western portion of the property, along with a flagstone pathway and patio. Various additions and modifications to the home have occurred over the years, and variances have been granted, and they're in the packet, which relate to front yard setback, coverage, variance to waive parking, setback for second floor addition. And interestingly enough, a variance was also granted years ago to vary the minimum flood elevation that was required. And that certainly is something currently that this board typically does not countenance. We've had multiple meetings with Ms. Maldonado over the course of the past eight months to a year, and those proved very helpful in gaining guidance and suggestions for this proposal. The applicant and the owner met with their neighbors in person, many of the neighbors explained the proposal to them. They had the opportunity to ask questions of the owners and the architect, and several in response to that meeting have submitted letters of support, notably Mr. Bain and Mr. Kleeman, who are direct abutters at 14 and 18 Rocky Point Road, which are on either side of the subject property, along with two other residents at 19 and 21 Rocky Point Road. So the proposal before you and the variances requested are in connection with some changes to the dwelling and some small additions to the dwelling. On the first floor, second, third, and garage, there's also a reduction of about 360 square feet in a certain section of the property. But most importantly, the proposal before you also contemplates that this structure will be elevated to meet the minimum flood requirements. So the first floor, ductwork, joists, and everything below will be at 15 feet plus 1 foot. FEMA minimum requirement is 15 feet. City of Norwalk requires an additional 1 foot. So the variances requested relate to setbacks. And I just want to mention that the front yard setback, while the requirement is 30 feet, the existing setback is 1.8 feet. And the proposal is to intrude 0.3 feet more into that front setback. So it's not a 30-foot setback right now. Current conditions are at 1.8 feet. Building height, instead of the 39 feet to the peak, we're looking at 43 feet to the main gable, increase in number of stories from 2.5 to 3, and an increase in building coverage. 43% exists as relates to the variances granted in years past. The increase in coverage also includes a proposed terrace elements at the rear of the property. As Ms. Maldonado's memo explained, if you deem it appropriate to grant the variances we seek tonight, we will be required to submit a CAM application to the Planning and Zoning Commission, which it and its staff will evaluate for compliance with coastal requirements and standards. We are aware of Ms. Williams' memo, and that both the firms of Rocco V. D'Andrea, our civil engineers, along with Race Coastal Engineers, have reviewed it and will certainly prepare and submit plans and reports to address and respond to her concerns. While you're moving forward with the application tonight, I would just ask that you keep in mind the standards of review for variances, as you well know, but just for the record, a ZBA may vary regulations upon the demonstration of practical difficulties or unnecessary hardships created by the strict application of the regulations to particular property. And when the request is in harmony with the general purpose of the zoning regulations so that substantial justice is achieved. And lastly, the ZBA is authorized to grant variances in a manner to secure the public health, safety, and welfare of the surrounding neighborhood. At this point, I'd like John Grinstead to take over and present to you the project. We certainly are happy to answer any questions you may have or clarify any aspect of the presentation that, if we're unclear or confusing, we look forward to your questions and also questions and comments from the public. So at this point, John.
Great, thank you, Liz. I'm gonna share my screen. All right, can everyone see me on the screen?
Yes.
Wonderful. So as Liz mentioned, and for the record, my name is John Grinstead. I'm a senior project manager, project architect at Workshop APD. We're the architects for the David E. Keelan Revocable Trust, which the owners of this property are David Keelan and his wife, Christina Lake. As was mentioned, the project is located at 16 Rocky Point, which is on the very tip and point of Bell Island here. As you can see in this yellow square. As mentioned, the home dates back to 1875, so it's obviously predates a lot of the zoning regulations. And we seek to obviously transform this home into the coming and foreseeable future. Liz mentioned it, but obviously we're in a designated flood zone. The elevation of the topography is about 8, and we're in the AEVE zone. Obviously the existing home is in the AE zone over here, and obviously on the Long Island Sound, the existing seawall, we're in that velocity zone. So as you can see from the diagram here, the original structure, the structure in pink, kind of dates as far as we can gauge back to the late 1800s, 1875. It's obviously been added on to the last kind of 50 years, as far as our records could tell, that we gathered from various departments in Norwalk. An 80s addition, which is basically adding on a car, 2-car garage with a granted variance alongside it that basically permitted 6-foot front yard setback, right? And it also remarkably increased the lot coverage allowable from 35 to 43%. And the variance from off-street parking requirements. There was a few other additions in the 90s, which are these ones in green, obviously throughout the 2.5-story structure at the time. Again, another variance was granted from the front yard setback from 30 to 13 for that 2nd-story addition above the garage. Another aggregate side yard variance, which basically allowed it down from 20.13 to 9 feet. So that means both side yards add up to 9. And then another variance was granted in 1992 before they put on the balcony, and that relates to relief from the Connecticut building code, which is more there's lot line windows, which kind of exceed the current requirements. And that's more, you can dig into that in G003 of what was submitted, but that was kind of relief granted in 1992. And then in 1993, they put on a large, substantial rear balcony.
So what you're showing us with the various colors is everything that was passed as a variance that allowed the building to be expanded to date.
To date. And the records we could gather and diagrammatically correlating it for visibility. So this kind of is our story here. Basically, we have an existing house that's been cobbled together over the last 150 years or so. We believe in there that there's kind of this jewel of this beautiful kind of cross gable. And obviously the number one prerogative for this job of this substantial renovation is to lift the house. So we seek to obviously lift it up 6 feet. And in doing any type of renovation like this, there's an opportunity to really make it an architectural gem and to kind of clean up and transform it into where it can go, right? To reimagine it. So you can kind of see here these red areas are what we call subtractive massing, which is where we kind of are eliminating some of the previously granted square footage within the setbacks, trying to clean it up, make it cohesive, organized, beautiful architectural volume. And what you kind of have here is this cleaned up geometry. So I'll kind of come back to the specific variances that we're asking but the cleaning up of geometry and the additions that are part of the proposal, there's kind of two that we wanted to flag here. Just that there's a net addition at the first and second floor within kind of the side yard setback. There's a little bit of an asterisk on our site plan here, which I'll show you. So you can kind of see here that the variance exceeds previously granted. So in removing basically this further away from the lot line, side lot line, and moving this one slightly over, we're not increasing the non-conformance, we're actually reducing it, at least in terms of that one, and bringing it into compliance. The other one, which is more specific to, I think, the third floor variance request, is this net addition at the third floor, which is 126 square feet. Again, it's in the front yard setback. And we believe that creates a cohesive building and very functional, usable space. And again, moves living spaces and bedrooms well above the floodplain, protecting the health, safety, and welfare of our client and the home.
Yeah. Explain to me where the half story kind of goes away and you end up with the third story.
I believe so. I know the zoning code is very specific to story, and it's based on kind of gable height.
Yeah.
There's a lot of gray in this, but I believe that's like the threshold where it becomes 2.5 to 3 is this small little addition here, because it's denoted from the second story, right? In the language.
Yeah. The half story was about what, 1,600 square feet, and so this is small compared to the size of the half story.
Very, very, yes. And obviously we're adding in a little bit of character, right, to match kind of the vernacular. So we're adding some dormers here. We're extending the gable in the back, and obviously, creating a nice kind of glass hallway that really opens the house out into the amazing view and the really precious gem of this property, which is.
Will you be showing us that?
we can that will be planning and zoning, but we will.
No, I'd like to see the elevations of the house drawn.
Okay.
Not,
Yeah, there.
we're looking at massing right now.
Okay, so you can guys see this is the rear, right? So this is the line of the existing house. The existing house is up above. So the house gets raised 6 feet. And then again, this is kind of beautiful glass kind of gallery that looks out to the view on the rear of the property.
So this is looking in from the water?
Looking in from the water, correct. And you can kind of see here.
Okay.
Okay. And obviously the last diagram we wanted to show was that obviously the home being elevated requires access, and that's part of our front yard setback request. We'll go here to what Rocky D'Andrea prepared. there's an existing 1.6, which is the existing garage right here. And obviously, in order to create a nice stairway up to the home, we are proposing kind of that little corner to clean up. It's 1.3. So it's an additional 0.3 into the setback for that little nub right there. That's part of the access way to that gallery.
You had mentioned raising the house, I guess, for flood protection purposes. You're gonna have to, before you finish tonight, explain that. But don't let me interrupt where you are.
Yeah. And again, just to kind of show the context here and what we're proposing, and again, this is very diagrammatic. The set that was sent more specific, but just so you can gauge kind of how it fits within the neighborhood as it's developed. So obviously existing home here, and then, you know, that's kind of what it is, and kind of the back. Kind of what it would feel like within the context. Yeah, so a lot of the information is contained on this and the submission from Yendra, the zoning survey and the survey itself, all the specifics of everything that's being asked for on our 4 variances. You know, again, when we looked at this as a design team, we really endeavored to create an improved, an additional living space for our client with kind of the minimal required variances. Like, we didn't want to overstep in any way. And there are 4 before you, but we do feel like it's very, you know, it's because of the practical difficulties of the site and the existing house, and is in keeping with, you know, that which has been granted before. And
John, may I interrupt for just a minute?
Of course, Liz.
If you could possibly explain to the board what will be entailed in lifting the house and how the flood requirements, flood vents and piers and the like will be met. I don't think we touched upon that yet.
Yeah. So obviously, yeah, I'll keep it simple. The house will obviously require a new foundation to become FEMA compliant with the current codes and regulations, which we always seek to and are required to put in play and in place. So the basement elevation, which was kind of the first floor, right, is basically becoming piers, pretty much all piers, and we're proposing breakaway walls, and that's purely a function. We didn't want to kind of ask for anything additional for like four stories, right? We only wanted to go from 2.5 to 3. Because if it were flood vents, it would count as a story because it'd be enclosed space. So again, we're keeping the garage kind of on the main floor because obviously cars practically have to drive in at grade. There's a stair up to the living space, the interior, and then again, this is the storage that is largely there now. And again, we're just kind of creating the retaining walls that'll meet the requirements, support the new house, and obviously strategizing this in a way that they can actually lift the volumes in our pier layout. So it may look a little bit like we're increasing this basement or first floor basement, whatever you'd like to call it now, a little bit, but that's more, it's a strategy for implementation down the road. Any other questions related to that?
Yes. In my reading this morning, I came across a memo or something from the city of Norwalk that they're considering requiring an additional foot, making it 2 feet above the floodplain How do you, have you considered that as a possibility or a necessity?
I mean, we all know what's happening, and our clients have sent us footage of, you know, the wave action and the flooding. And I don't think it would be, you know, it wouldn't, we can easily adjust up another foot. You know, the trick is always meeting existing grade, right? The allowance of fill, or you know, making it.
I'm not feeling an answer here.
Maybe I can step in, Mr. Levy. What you're referring to, I believe, are proposed regulations that the city is contemplating as
Yes,
part of the zoning rewrite. Right now, those regulations are proposed. They have not been adopted by the
I
commission,
understand.
and they would not be effective until probably February, March of next year. So we've designed this to meet the current requirements. And that's why it's designed the way it is, and that's why it's designed at FEMA plus 1 foot, because that's what is required today.
Yes,
I don't believe that there is, at this point, I think if I may speak for Mr. Grinstead, I don't think there's a need at this point to add an additional 1 foot because of the way in which the structure has been designed, piers, breakaway walls that will be sufficient to meet the FEMA requirements of 15 feet plus 1.
okay. I'll just make note, my first house raising to comply with FEMA was done 30 years ago. And 2 houses that I did between 25 and 30 years ago, when we raised them to comply with FEMA, we have found that they've been required by insurance to raise it again. So something to consider.
We'll certainly consider it. Thank you, Mr. Levy.
So what level above sea level are you taking the first floor?
First one. So 17 here.
You want to add your numbers together and tell me what they are? Because I can't figure them out from here.
First floor is 17.
Okay, thanks. That help you, Lee?
Yes, it does.
Continue, please.
John, do you have anything further to add at this point?
I do not.
I have a question. What else is behind it? The garage and the cars, what else is on that? Are you shifting this remodeling based on the fact that you're losing livable space on that ground floor? In other words, is there anybody living bedrooms on that first floor?
Existing.
These are existing, so it's largely living, kitchen, laundry, mud, hall, entry, and then garage. Right now, all the bedrooms are at where we're kind of raising it, so we're moving everything up, right? So the bedrooms move up, the living moves up quite substantially.
The habitable space will move from where it is today up to that
Up a story.
required.
Yeah.
And on that first floor, it'd be the garage and storage, but not habitable space, mudroom or dining room, kitchen. That'll all be on what's that the floor as John just described.
Yeah. And it's a current, I mean, again, nothing about lifting houses is easy, but it's a split level currently, slightly. So again, we're reconciling things as we shift those volumes.
So after you reconciled everything, how many stories does the building supposed to have?
It will end up being a 3-story home. Since the on grade is on piers and it's storage and garage space, and it's open, that's not counted as a story. So there will be one living space, the first story above that, the next story above that. And since the upper story is more than 60% of the floor below it, it counts as another full story. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm real familiar with the property. So are you basically we killing off a bunch of living space to meet the FEMA guideline and therefore really not expanding the house and living space that much?
I mean, Liz outlined it in her memo. Let me see if I can pull it up. So the first floor increases by 751 square feet. Second floor increases by 280, and the third floor by 359.
All right.
So it's a 1,200.
It isn't going to make the community all that much dense. It's not like adding multiple rooms that are bedrooms. It's not that. Okay, good. Next.
I'd like to add just that I think during the presentation, the lowest level may have been referred to as a basement erroneously. It is not a basement per FEMA's standards. It's just the lowest level.
No.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
but there's 3 livable levels above it.
Yes.
Yeah, and therefore, from our story perspective, it's 3-story building. Tammy.
Yes, 3 stories.
Okay.
How many bedrooms exist and how many are proposed?
So I believe 5 exist right now.
Does
And
that include the office?
they have a pool table in there, the guest room.
But it's considered a bedroom. Yes.
Does it have anything in it that like a connection to a bathroom, full bathroom?
Through the hall, I believe. So I think we're going from 5 to 4. Or 4 to 4, depending on how you count that guest room. So there's a little sink there. And again, you could share.
Well, that's legally a bedroom. You can call it an office, you can call it a den, it's a bedroom according to the building code.
Yeah, but I think the implication had been when you first start reading the documents and some of the letters that staff wrote that this thing was getting very large. And
Well,
got the
this
impression the livable space increased a lot. So you would think 4 bedrooms became 8 bedrooms or something like that. And that's
well, there are 4 bedrooms on this, what I would presume it's the second floor.
And 3.
And 3 in the third floor. So that's 8 bedrooms now.
No, 6.
7, pardon me, 7 bedrooms.
7 if you count the guest room.
Well, it's a bedroom.
all right.
You're calling it a
Not
guest
the
room.
guest room.
People are going to stay there.
So if we have 7, do we have 7 bedrooms in the current plan as will be built?
We have 4.
All right. Lee, what do you say to that?
Well, this floor has, to me, according to the building code, 4 bedrooms.
And I'm
I
still
mean,
not getting
the proposed plan is, it may have less rooms designated as bedrooms, but it's still a big increase in floor area, right? I mean, that lounge in the middle there is enormous. It could be a bedroom. In this plan, it's not, because it's just open to the stair, but like anybody could wall that off pretty easily.
Yeah, Danielle, but as you look at the plan, while there are some larger rooms, when they reconstruct the building, it isn't as though they're trying to house a lot more people in the building.
That's true.
It's at least not obvious to me. It is, but anyway. And what
Yeah.
happens to the garage? Are there a lot more spaces for cars or just the exact same number?
There's exactly the same number.
2.
So it's a 2-car garage. A very tight garage from the 80s.
So was there any thinking of just tearing the house down and rebuilding it?
Do you want to speak to that, Liz?
With any project, of course, that's a consideration, but the client preferred to keep the house and to maintain some of the existing setbacks and some of the existing relief that had been granted over the years and try to work within those constraints. I suspect that had they decided to tear down and start anew, perhaps there would have been other or
Right.
intensive variances requested, but they wanted to try to keep as much as had been granted in the past. For a variety of reasons, their own relationship with neighbors, and how the structure appeared on the street. So I think what they've also done is try to adjust some of those to give greater setbacks to the neighbor on one side, try to maintain what was there, given all of the relief that had been granted by your predecessors. Have anything else to add?
Danielle, go.
First of all, I want to say thank you for the documents you provided. I think this is a mishmash of a ton of variances, but you were able to illustrate it in a way that I do think is legible.
Glad it's clear. It's a lot. Yes.
Yeah. Variance request 3, I think, is the one that I feel is like least convincing as a needed variance on the 3rd floor to increase the mass of the house in that particular area. I mean, architecturally, I get it. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the one to speak to that I think, is the least convincing in these requests. I think we talk a lot on this board about the mass of the house increasing significantly. And I do think that when you look at the elevations on page, particularly the one from the water and the street side. So the east one and the west one, that the building is getting a lot bigger.
So don't you think that's at least in part to elevating?
I mean,
I'm going to agree with what Danielle is saying. I think the architecture, especially on, I guess it's the northeast side, where it adjoins 14 Rocky Point Road, I think it's very blocky and it doesn't have much architectural interest. It's just this shed roof that lends itself to a very massive elevation on the tightest side yard we've seen in a long time. And I don't think there's been any effort to reduce that massing to try to bring it down, even though it's 3 stories, bring it down to a 2.5 story mass.
Well, I'm not so sure that would make a lot of difference, but it does seem closer to what the rest of the neighboring houses look like in the area.
I
along
won't
the
agree
beach.
with that.
Yeah, along the beach.
We did obviously gauge that, and we had our surveyor do the peaks of the various neighbors. So this 14 Rocky Point Road is actually at their peak is at 15.3.5. Obviously, our existing peak is 39.3, and we're raising it up to 43. So we're still 10 feet down from their peak. I know there are differences of grade, and again, same thing with the neighbor over here. We're still 4 feet down, and the central gable is the really only thing that is, at that highest point. Like we probably are still, although again, we're a lot closer, right, to the street. There's a certain presence there. But we are certainly lower in our peak.
Well, you know, Lee, the old building looks piecemeal. And the
Oh,
new build,
I understand it.
and the new building appears to be almost castle-like. It's very straight-sided and clumpy, boxy, if you will. But that's not my pick. I don't get to choose that. What I
No,
was worried
I know we're not supposed to be architectural critics here.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard not to do that, especially when
Yeah.
you're an architect.
Yeah,
But that one elevation with the shed roof really bothers me. I think a little bit more study of that roof, maybe with, instead of a shed roof, it had a couple of dormers or some interest to it. It's
Yeah.
just presenting this massive flat wall.
yeah,
I look at it, it seems to me it is what it is. I mean, these are all shoehorned into a cul-de-sac. And I think in some ways the neighbors are agreeing to the amendments here because they may be in a similar situation. And there's I mean, that home is on the street. I mean, I had to inhale to drive through here because everything just seemed, it was just on top of each other. So if you can find some wiggle room to do what you need to do, God bless you, but it's it's a task.
it is. I've been there in that area many, many times for
Yeah.
different reasons. And I'm amazed at the structures that are there. This looks like this took a lot of work just to get to the point we're at. But I thought an impression had been given, either through our staff memos or discussions, that this was massively being increased. That essentially was like a doubling of population. I'm making that up, by the way. But the implication was there would be an impact on the environment. I'm not seeing that.
Oh, I don't think it goes that far. I would agree with you there. It's just the way the additions are masked. It's very blocky.
It is.
They're as opposed to many other houses in the neighborhood that have true architectural interest. This one is very blocky, especially on the northwest elevation. It looks like a box that's been tacked on.
Hey, Lee, would it be helpful for me to share? Because again, we're looking at white boxes, right? And we're looking at a zoning package here, more or less. Like, would it be helpful for us to show you some renderings with?
You
I'll
have
look at
somebody
whatever
show the
you want
front
to
and
put
rear?
up on the screen,
Yeah,
but
let me
I'm
dig it up real
trying to
quick.
express my opinion, towards this zoning variance. And, when we're pushing the envelope from 2.5 to 3 stories, I think there should be some effort to try to reduce the mass and keep essentially the 3rd story that you're requesting.
Lee, I think it's very, very smart and fair concerns, both yours and Danielle's. The reason that I think the renderings help a little bit is because we've tried to make a concerted effort to push that massing back off the street to differentiate it from the tallest massing, the tall gable massing John was referring to, and to address it from a materiality standpoint. There's also some existing trees. We have zero intention of disrupting on the site in that area. And we have a relatively extreme proximity to the neighbor that we want to be, very sensitive to.
Okay. Tell me about the white box to the left.
That's our neighbor.
Okay. Well, that's okay. Yep. It looks like a municipal building in San Francisco. very
I love the
modern.
glass. I love
Very
the
modern.
glass throughout. The glass throughout looks really nice.
Yeah. So, Lee, you all set?
Well, I mean, I still think the mass on the right side doesn't work. It bothers me.
All right, is that partially perspective? It sticks out closer to you than the mass on the left side?
No, it's far more massive.
I don't know. I don't think so.
Uh,
Anyway.
I have another question, Andy, and maybe it's more for the board generally. You know, that those variances stay with the property. This one's getting a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there, a little bit there, until eventually, you know, you have something that's totally out of line with the zoning code.
Yeah.
How has the board treated properties that, you know, end up really kind of out of whack after lots of variances get applied to them?
I've never seen disappearing variances. They seem to be maintained in all of my experience. There is a phrase used by attorneys that deals with the fact that you still one variance on top of another 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 variance. And that incrementalism is done on purpose. It's so you can get something a lot bigger than you would have gotten if you'd asked for it all in the first variance. But I have not actually seen that in practice. Have you? Have you seen that?
It's very rare, Andy.
Well,
I want to
in
comment. The
your
actual
experience.
the windows, the transparency of that project. This is a true rendition of this, John? Is this how it's going to look?
I would say like the way we develop the design, like we mass it and we get the floor plans. We're in material study mode right now, whether it's rain screen, shaker, like we're exploring.
Like I see the look through from the home to behind the home. Is that how it's going to be?
I think there will be enough light where you can actually see through there. Windows tend to be more black in reality, but I think you have enough light in there that it'll probably be very
Because sometimes when you increase a building dwelling, when you have more glass, it's not as in your face, if you know what I mean, John. It's more.
Yeah, it's always reflective of the actual context, the neighborhood, trees, like, glass actually goes away, right? Because it's a mirror.
Yeah, so based on that comment, based on what I'm looking at now, do you think this will be like an actual look of the home?
I think it's as accurate as we can get right now.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
That's your determinations.
Appreciate it. Thank you, John.
Danielle, did you have any further questions?
No.
So we need to not go too far in the discussion here because we want to complete the presentation.
Yeah, and I'm done with my presentation.
Okay, so the presentation is complete. Do we have anybody, Tammy, who you might drop your, there you go. Do we have anybody, Tammy, that has joined and has raised a hand and wants to comment as supporting the variance requests?
So we had 5 letters of support for the attendees. If you would like to make a comment, just if you've dialed in, press *9 and then *6. If you're just online, then you can just raise your hand.
All right, so if you don't have the letters, I do, Lee. I've
got them right in front of me.
All right. What I would suggest, since I noticed how similar they all were, is pick one that's most representative and tell us who it was and where they live, and then just give us the gist.
Okay, picking one and I'll say at random. Dear Ms. Maldonado, my name is Christine von Bargen and my husband, Jonathan McCarty, and I live at 13 Rocky Point Road, which is located on the same cul-de-sac as the home of David Cleland and Christina Lake. They have told us of their plans to renovate, which we understand will require variances of the zoning regulations. David and Christina are excellent neighbors, and we wanted you to know that we fully support their project and hope the Zoning Board of Appeals approves their request. Thank you, Christina von Bargen. And they're all pretty much similar.
They are. Just tell us the names of the other people and address.
Okay. We've got Robert Bain III at 14 Rocky Point Road. We've got Edward Waters at 19 Rocky Point Road. Who is this from? Adam Derrick at 21 Rocky Point Road, and Merrick Kleeman at 18 Rocky Point Road.
Thank you. So we don't have any hands raised. Is that correct, Tammy?
That's correct.
All right. Do we have anybody objecting to granting the variance? If you are there and want to speak, *9.
No raised hands.
Okay. So I don't think there's any rebuttal needed. Do you, Liz?
No rebuttal needed, Mr. Chairman. I would like to remind you, though, that if there are areas of concern for the variances that we're seeking, you can certainly vote on them individually if some are of concern to all or any of you. And that would be something we would have to work on if, in fact, you deem it appropriate that some are supported by or what we demonstrated to you in the request is supported by practical difficulties, unnecessary hardships. That would be something that certainly is within your authority to do so. I would hope that you would be able to act on this application tonight as it is presented. And I do appreciate Mr. Levy's concern about the style and the how the structure looks on that northeast or northwestern corner. But again, as he aptly pointed out, we don't have architectural review, whether for good or for bad. But I would hope that you could see the benefits to this structure as presented, particularly that it meets minimum flood elevation. It has all that habitable space up and above at 17. If you have any other questions for Mr. Zoli or for Mr. Grinstead or myself, I'd be happy to answer them. And as I did indicate before, we do have another process to go through in connection with FEMA flood compliance and coastal area management compliance with the zoning commission, should you move this matter forward tonight and act upon the variances.
Yeah, what makes it a little bit unusual is the elimination of the effect of a lot of past variances and the recreation of the house in a quite different form. So I don't think this is just slap another side of the building or add 2 offices hanging off the side or any of those kinds of things. I think this is makes sense as a whole. Anyway, moving on. I think we're all set. We're going to deal with the first one first and deal with the last one second. That's the one we just talked to. Meaning you have to think about what was happening in the first review, and that pulls Steve back in for the discussion of the first item. Anybody want to open the discussion? Target.
I believe that the Target facade and signage, I think it's an improvement over what Walmart has. I am concerned over the height of the main Target letters and the bullseyes. Personally, I'd like to see them each a foot smaller. I think there's a lot of recognition of Target. You know, and it will be a major presence on Connecticut Avenue, and we all know what the traffic is like on Connecticut Avenue, but I think people will use that as a destination, and that, you know, reducing the size of the letters and the target by a foot or two wouldn't be detrimental to the operation of the business.
Yeah.
I
The starting point for me was that with the distance they are from the road, they almost qualify for 3-foot high letters. And if we were to grant them the 3, does 4 make sense? Now, I haven't gotten to where they're actually asking for. So 4 can make sense given all the things we've done at other times, and given the distance back from the road. I have a lot of trouble going to the much larger sizes. That's difficult for me to want to approve.
I
Okay.
agree. I agree. The number of signs on the building, given the length of it and the kind of wayfinding elements purpose that they're serving, doesn't bother me so much. But the height of them, I think, is something we want to restrict.
Danielle, do you think that, remember there was a central sign that
Yep.
said large target with a large bullseye?
Yep.
Then you had 2 signs off to each side with 2 different purposes. And this is on the front of the building. And they're fairly large flags, if you will. Do you think they need to be reduced a bit in size? I kind of do. I think they detract from the central sign.
CVS, wait, are we talking about the bullseye or the?
I just
They were
general,
talking
as you recall, the flags that were there, because that's what they look like. They seem to have an arm and then a body like a flag does. So that's the only reason I'm referring to them that way. But they seem to detract from central. And you can get the CVS logo up however the hell you want, that makes sense within the code, and maybe even bump it up a foot. But you don't want to go whole hog on moving things wider and having really long lines. And I think that detracts from the central sign and isn't necessary. The code doesn't really allow it. So I don't know that we have to.
I mean, I think that the branding is working. It's like Dunkin' Donuts. Do you believe in Dunkin' Donuts anymore? DD is working pretty well for them. I think the Target bullseye works well for them. I think in companion to the letters, I don't think the letters need to be as pronounced anymore. At that scale.
That your last, I got everything except your last statement.
Yeah, I don't think that in scale, I don't think the letters need to be that pronounced anymore. I think your logo, your branding is so successful that you know, you got a sledgehammer there, and I think you're getting the point across. Your branding is working successfully. I would bring those letters down more to scale within code.
I agree.
Yeah, okay.
I agree.
Yeah, I think several of us agree. So the question is, do you want 8-foot letters, or do you want 6-foot letters, or do you want 4-foot letters? And do you want the bullseye to be constrained by the letter height, or would you allow an extra 2 feet for the bullseye?
I would reduce them in proportion. If we reduce the size of the letters by 2 feet, then the target should be reduced by 2 feet.
All right, so you want to go 4 feet, 4.5 feet for the letters? What's the general feel?
I think that staff recommendation of 48 inches makes sense, 4 feet.
I agree.
And then my recollection is dealing with some of the other logo issues. They're going to want the bullseye to be larger than the letters. And I think that's basically the way it was drawn, but I don't know how to increase it proportionally. Maybe we throw that to staff to deal with, because what we're going to be told is the corporate logo has been worked out mathematically, and they're going to want it to be that ratio, whatever the ratio is. So as long as they run it by staff and they don't exceed an additional 2 feet in diameter, so that would be 48 plus 24, 60,
feet.
72,
72, 72, 6 feet.
So 72 is the maximum for the diameter, but it may be smaller. Is that working? 48 for the
That
big,
works for me.
Yep.
72 or smaller for the target itself. I mean, not the name target, but
The bullseye.
so that would be what I would approve if we're all headed that direction. Now, the two signs that they wanted to help delineate the building linearly, how do we deal with those?
Well, if this weren't a Target and were divided up into individual retail stores, they would certainly have a lot more signage than we're looking at now. I think the 4 signs that have been proposed is more than adequate. And I think the elevation works well when the letters are reduced and the target is reduced.
Well, how high, remember there is a limit of 2 feet for those additional signs. How high do we allow those letters to be? And I think the one on the right side was to designate a pickup area. And
Yes.
the one on the left side had something to do with CVS.
Yes.
CVS is usually red letters on white. So I would think that they might want to think about that on the sign. So to the right, it could look a little bit different than the one to the left, and the one to the right is functional. So is 2 feet letters enough at the distance to be functional? I think probably not. I think we'd probably go with 3 feet.
I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, I'm okay with that too.
On the CVS side, I've never seen a CVS sign that was just CVS pharmacy by itself. There was always other stuff on the sign. So how do you want to say maximum 3 foot height, regardless of whether it's a piece of the logo or text?
Well, I think 2 feet for the CVS. I mean, they've shown it smaller than the pickup sign.
It's at 19 inches, I think. 19 and a half.
That should be plenty large.
Okay, 2 feet. And then, but do you want to hold anything else that's, I can't remember when I last saw a CVS sign that has kind of symbol next to it. Any of you with that?
No, yeah.
Anyway, I don't want the symbol to have to be shrunk down. But I do agree with the 2 foot height limit on the text. 3 foot on the pickup area. And then they can rearrange their sign however they want so that they have balance in the signs. But I do think CVS wants a white background with red on it, red text. They should know that. I mean, that shouldn't be for us to have to figure out.
I mean, that's how it's proposed.
Yeah, it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So we approve that, and then this the standing sign as you come in the entrance. Do you want to approve it as presented?
Yes, I'm fine with it.
The ground sign, they removed the request for variance for that one.
Right.
But they'll go with what's there, basically. Same dimensions as what was there with Walmart.
Yeah, for the existing panel, they're they're just switching out the existing panel sign.
Yeah, and then the Home Goods was a little bit smaller and underneath it, right?
Home Goods isn't going to change, I don't think. So.
Okay. All right. Do I hear a motion? Danielle, do I hear a motion?
I'll motion to
A motion
to remember all those things that we just discussed.
Why don't you start with the big sign first?
All right, the big sign at letters at 48 inches max with the proportional target logo adjacent.
But held within
not to exceed
an additional 2
6 feet. Yeah.
Top to bottom. Actually, it's diameter, not height. Excuse me.
Same difference, right?
I'll second it.
Well,
I don't
wait,
think
we're not
she's
done.
done
we
yet.
gotta keep going.
Got a
The
couple more signs to do.
other
Danielle?
Target logo, right, is to remain the same size.
Then you have the pickup area, which was 3 feet,
Yep,
and
and CVS as proposed is fine.
2 feet.
I think we don't really need to do anything with that one,
But
but
just
a motion
limit
to
it
approve
to 2 feet.
all of
Limit
that.
it to 2 feet.
Wait, can I just, I'm sorry, can I clarify the standalone bullseye right at the entrance? You said that is okay as is? That was almost 8 feet?
You're talking the one on the building, or you're talking about the one
No.
out?
On the
Yeah.
building,
To the
Yeah.
road.
The one on the
come-
building,
that lines with the stoplight.
exactly, the standalone bullseye.
Well, it's
Yeah.
actually internal by 50, 60 feet, something like that. You've been there before at the Walmart. As you come in the home goods side, it
Yeah.
juts out a bit. And that's where they're gonna put the sign.
But you're okay with it as proposed? That's what I was just clarifying. Or that has to be 6 feet also?
Remind me that we're talking 3 feet for the sign?
Oh.
That sign. It does, if it gets really big, it's gonna look real weird. So I think we don't want it to be a huge sign there.
I think
nor
we
is
could
a
drop
particularly
it to
necessary.
6 feet in diameter.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think that is necessary at all.
Well, I think
All,
Andy,
all they're doing is identifying, if you come up past this corner, it's Target as you go around home.
Wait,
Goods.
I think we're not talking about the same thing.
right,
Can I share my screen? I have
Yeah.
it pulled up. All right. This one. So we're talking about, you can see my cursor, right? We're talking about this one.
I don't see anything.
All right, hold on.
I see it.
Yeah, it's the target,
This
Yeah.
one.
yeah, I think it should be the same size as the target next to the word target.
So if this one is coming down to 6 foot max, then this one is also 6 foot max.
Right.
I agree.
But there's another one. Go all the way to the left-hand side and you'll see a red stripe,
that's
which is
this.
the edge of a sign. And then underneath that is a small square. And
Yeah,
it shows the front of the building
Right.
sticking out.
Yeah,
Now, does
yeah.
that have to be a huge sign? I mean,
No, it's
To me,
much
that's-
smaller.
I believe
5
that's
feet.
5 feet.
5 feet. Leave it.
let's make it 4. I don't.
I'd
it
like to
doesn't
see it
serve
at
a
4.
real purpose other than saying this is where Target is.
I think 4 feet in diameter is in proportion to the 6 foot targets on the front of the building.
Yeah, except you don't see them at the same time, so.
I know.
Yeah, and home goods, and we're not trying to drown home goods with Target's logo. From a designer point of view.
I guess if you come in from the side, you see it, you say, oh, I'm in the Target. If you're coming in from the side, which I think there still is a entrance on the side.
There is.
Yes.
There
So
is.
that's probably there for it. So, oh, yes, I'm in the right parking lot.
You know,
Because you can't see the whole store.
you know what's interesting is that when you look at this building, you don't have to see it completely from the highway. Like, let's keep it like as smaller is better. You don't have to have the same bullseyes, the same size, but let's just scale it down. You don't have to have to see it from 95. And I think that's what they're trying to do is see it from 95. I think we just handle it for where it's at.
I don't think you can
95 is
see
like
this
over
from
here.
You can't see from 95.
95.
Okay,
Yeah.
one at a time. That was 4 of you all at once.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Somebody want to respond to Steve?
Yeah.
Yes,
What
I
I'm saying
don't
is, like,
think you can see
Yes.
this.
so let's not try to make it look like something you could see from 95 is what I'm trying to say. Like, let's scale it to where it should be.
Right.
It's not a highway. This is a corridor.
Well, it's a driveway. It's what it is.
So what, is there a consensus on 4 feet?
I think 4 is enough.
Four
I think
is,
it's-
4 is substantial.
All
It's
right,
fine.
so we're good on this side of the building?
But that's that one little
Yeah.
sign
Yeah.
that's on the jut out. Steve, you okay with that? If it gets smaller than that, it starts to-
I don't want to like beat this up, but the 2 Target signs, the logos there, Lee mentioned they should be the same size. I'm not understanding why they should be the same size because they're in two different spaces, but I like the fact of decreasing, the size of the signs and the words.
Yeah,
I
the
just
only
think it
thing I
would,
see is there's some symmetry to keeping
Yeah,
them the
yeah,
same size.
yeah, I
Yeah, I
think
think
it's
it's
gotta
big,
be the
yeah,
same
yeah.
size.
Yeah, otherwise it looks like a mistake.
But as you come in from the side street and you start driving by Home Goods, the question that you might run through your mind is, do I park here for Target? And if you see a sign that's on the jut out that is a logo of Target, that might kind of spring you into thinking, no, I need to drive another 50, 60 feet and get up to the Target park.
I think you can't get too literal because otherwise you'd say, well, where do I park with CVS? I think you're in.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, so we
I don't
agreed
know.
on the 4 foot for that sign?
Yes,
Okay. Steve, can you live with 4 feet? Pilgrim, can you handle that?
I'm thinking, okay, I'll leave it to you all on that one, the size.
All right. It's one small sign for mankind.
Yes, okay. Yes, Steve is good with that.
All right. Was there anything else that, Tammy, that we had to cover? Because they withdrew the other things from.
Yeah, I think
the request.
did we talk about the pickup sign that's going to be no greater than 3, right? We said that in the motion, Danielle?
This
Yeah,
one, drive up.
that's it.
Oh, drive up, sorry, not
Yeah.
pickup, drive up. Okay, and then did we get a second?
I'll second it.
We got a lot of seconds. I second it.
Go ahead. It's all yours.
You got it. Then you can blame me later. Yeah, we weren't that generous to Walmart. Maybe that's why they left. Here we go. So the vote is, raise your hand if you're in favor as the motion was made, and
Aye.
say aye after you raise your hand.
Aye.
If you're not in favor, and I don't think there is anybody, raise your hand. Tom, are you not in favor? Or are you in favor? I've lost track of what you're doing. Are you voting in favor? Or
I'm in
against?
favor.
You're in favor.
I'm in
All right.
favor.
Okay.
I'm in favor.
So we're unanimously in favor of the variances restrained to the degree that we put forward. So I think we're set on this. Jamie, can you think of anything we forgot? We all set.
I think we're okay.
Okay. And I do believe Target had somebody listening to us as we proceeded, so they probably know where they're at the moment. Next item up. It's Ben. Ben, you're in on this.
Andy, can I just preface this at just a reminder? I know they have several different variance requests, so you can, as Liz pointed out, you can choose to vote on, approve some or all or any or none, and then you could also ask for modifications, or if you need additional info, you can continue it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I understand that, and that's true every time we do this. So I'm a little concerned that we think we're going to take it apart piecemeal. I don't think so. I think that this was sold as a package, and we ought to either approve it or disapprove it as a package. Initial impact as I read it was that I would never vote for this. I have changed my mind. I think that I can support it. I think it makes sense. And whether the optics of it are appealing to you or not is not part of the decision process here. It really is, does it make sense? And you had an old house with a bazillion variances, and they're kind of decompressing it. And this idea that they're maintaining all the old variances, well, yeah, kind of. But what they're trying to do is bring the house around to current era. Go with that. You guys can discuss it among yourselves, and I'll just sit here and listen.
Well, the only point that I have a difficulty with is the mass that sits along the the closest side to the property line on the, I guess it's the northwest property line. They're asking for 3 stories there, and I don't see where they've made any effort to visually or physically diminish the height of that elevation, because it's almost, because of the because of the act of elevating the house, it's almost 4 stories there. And
Yeah.
I can't agree with that.
You know, in general, I think I agree with your position, but every time we get down the water side and we're elevating houses to deal with FEMA, we are doing what you just said you don't want to see done. And we're doing it over and over and over again.
I will throw in the possibility that by the time they request their make their application for a building permit, this house may have to be elevated another foot by
Yeah,
the
Mike.
changes of the zoning regs.
Well, if they can move quickly, that won't happen.
Well, you know, you can say, oh, if it moves quickly, sometimes the wheels don't move that quickly. So
Sometimes they don't.
So
But I'm not gonna wait and say that I forecast that. they're
yeah,
not-
I can't predict it.
Right.
anticipated adoption, we're looking at probably February.
All right. Where's our other architect at on this?
Well, the variance that it's actually asking for with regards to the side yard setback or that adjacent to the property is not an additional variance into the side yard setback. It's actually one into the front yard setback.
Yeah, yeah.
Which, I mean, I just think like, you know, to argue that it's a hardship that they need more square footage in that particular area is like not very convincing. But architecturally, I understand what they're trying to do with asking for all of these variants together in the effort to raise the house.
Well, you know, there's 2 ways of looking at it. One is there an unusual hardship? And that's a very stiff thing to me. And the other is there a practical difficulty? And I've always defined the practical difficulty as saying, well, I want to put a garage in front of my house as an addition, but there's this huge 40-foot boulder there. And so I have to push it more to the side toward the neighbor, and I need a variance. And the neighbor's okay with it. So that is, to me, the practical difficulty. One example. There's lots of other.
I hear you. I just think it's an architecturally imposed one.
Yeah.
I want to toss something in that nobody brought up.
What's that?
And, you know, they might have said it's a practical difficulty, and I don't know how they're going to solve it. That wing that I object to, which is existing to some extent, it's going to be interesting how they lift it without working on the adjoining property.
They got 2 feet.
Yeah.
They got 2 feet, and I can tell you from experience, because I've done 5 houses that have been lifted. 2 of them have had problems with adjoining property owners, and a variance on one of them was granted just on the simple fact that we showed that that wing of the house couldn't be jacked without trespassing on the adjoining property.
Yeah,
I don't think they're going to easily do it.
Well, the adjoining property sent a letter of support. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, but they may not want heavy equipment on their property. They may
might not.
say, "Oh, it's great."
I'm sure that if they objected, they would have said so, because they've already.
Well, they may not have heard that argument that I'm putting forward.
And Lee, they had the ability to come tonight and say they had some concerns.
Oh, I agree. I think they're being just ignorant to the possibilities.
Yeah. Well, it could be they don't like the look of the old house and they want it modernized.
Well, and I'll be honest, I think the applicant might be better off just tearing the house down. I would have liked to have seen a sketch of the, just the building plot based on current zoning.
I don't know.
Well, the walls would have to come in quite a bit, I think. to
Well,
do-
I would have liked to have seen that.
You don't have row houses here. You don't have row houses here. You have row mansions, and they need. It's almost like a game of operation. I don't know how you extract what you need to do here without really elbowing somebody a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think as the process goes on, I think there's gonna be a give and take. I think it'd be very, very hard to believe that wouldn't encroach on, putting this up wouldn't encroach on the neighbor in some way that they don't realize or are overlooking. Maybe they're gonna have a similar situation down the road. They're all relatively similar. I mean,
Oh,
they're all on
yeah.
top of each other.
Well, do you think the variance requests are excessive considering the practical difficulty of trying to renovate this old property?
I think it's a very difficult project. I think, you know, I know that in the past, because I've done a project down there, that construction activity, location of dumpsters, heavy equipment, lumber piles is
Mhm.
always problematic.
And on Rocky Point, it is really gonna be problematic.
Oh,
Hmm.
I know. I had a client that their proposal was to dock a barge against the seawall.
Yeah, I would think that might happen this time too. Who knows?
Hmm.
But anyway, after I saw the complicated effort where they're trying to renovate and whether or not I like the look of the building, it seemed to me to be comprehensive and reasonable. Whether you want to grant the variance to the sizes that they have requested, I'm not going to comment on that. I think it's okay, but you guys may not. We'll see.
I think it just falls in line, be careful what you wish for. Sometimes you become a burden of your dreams. And maybe that's what it is, but I think you don't know until you go.
And Danielle brought it up. So how do you feel about granting all the variances as requested?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's very much in line with a lot of the other variances we grant for raising things to the FEMA required flood elevations. I have some other thoughts about how that basically just exponentially increases who can have any kind of waterfront access because of the cost it required to do that. But I mean, I think, a lot of it really is in line with a lot of the other stuff that we have done.
Well,
We
do you
try to
think-
be
do you-
sensitive
let
to
me
the
ask you this.
bulk
We've al-
of the building.
We've always required them to essentially stay within the footprint of the existing building. That's been one of our requirements.
Yeah, so this one's interesting in that there's a little give and take.
Yeah, there is. Do you
And
think that is more take than give or what?
I think when you look at the elevations, it's more take than give. And that is mostly in the current, it's not just, if you look at the red outline, it's not just moving it up.
Yeah.
It's also increasing that third story in other places. In some places, that's not actually, it doesn't matter. You don't need a variance to do it.
Uh-huh.
It just, that there's that one red corner where you do.
So where are we at? Do you think the assemblage of variances as a group makes sense to you or not?
I think it makes sense.
Lee?
I think it makes sense.
I just, 90% of this, I don't have issues with.
Yeah.
It's that 10% that's just
Ben?
jabbing me in the behind.
Yeah, Ben, what's your view?
I don't really have any problems with this one. I don't, yeah, share the concerns as much. I'd be fine with letting this one go through as is.
Yeah, and Tom, let me see if I understand you correctly. You seemingly are saying, fate is fate, therefore, approve it as is. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that they have a workable plan. It involves definitely stepping on a couple of toes during the process, neighborhood wise, as you say. It's tight in there to get all what you need to get in to get this job done. I can see it protracted. I can see some fits and starts in it, but overall, in character of what's there and the scale of what's there, I would approve it. I'd say let them go. It's not egregious because it's everybody near them is kind of in the same boat.
All right,
And it
so
looks the same.
if there's further discussion, speak now. Having none, I think we've discussed ourselves out of discussion period, and it is time to vote. So all of those in favor say aye and raise your hand.
Did we get a
Need a
motion?
motion?
This is the motion to approve all the variances as presented. There wasn't any change to them that I can recall. Is that right, Tammy?
That's correct. Who's making the motion? I'm sorry.
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
There wasn't any change to the request of variances. And sometimes I forget that there is, but I don't think there was any.
No, this was right. It was not as published and as the memo. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So is there?
I will second that motion.
Okay, Tom will second it, which by the way, I don't think is necessary in our assembly, but no, we're going to straighten that out by January also. It's this second and first, because by the time you get to a second, you might as well just vote. So all in favor, say aye, aye, and raise your hand so I can count you all. Yes,
Aye.
yes. And Lee, are you in yay or nay?
Nay.
All right, so we have 1 against and 4 for, so the item passes. Good night, Liz.
Everyone for your thought. It's not easy, and we do appreciate the time and the attention you paid to this. It's an unusual piece, but we thank you very much, and we're really very appreciative of your efforts tonight.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Thank you all.
Moving on in the agenda. Does anybody have any issues with the minutes that were sent out?
I read through them. I have no objections or changes.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, so I'll move the minutes. Somebody second real quick.
Second.
Okay. And all in favor say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
So the minutes are adopted. Anybody who wasn't present and wanted to not vote, that's probably Danielle.
That was me. Yep.
That's about the only time that more than 5 of us will be voting, because there's more than 5 of us involved in creating the minutes. The training status. We have certified training for Andy, certified training for who else?
Here's mine. It'll be sent in.
You found it? Lee?
Yeah, I'm cleaning out my office. I found it.
All right, so Lee's got it. He just didn't give it to us yet. So
I also have it and didn't give it to you, so I got to go dig it up.
All right, dig it up, Danielle.
Ben just sent it.
I'm gonna take the Tammy offered option of attending the 3 sessions.
Okay, the cram course. Yeah, okay. And Tom, you have already turned yours in?
Yes.
Yeah.
I did
So,
mine.
Steve,
I did mine right away when I first got the initial call.
All right, I thought you said you attended, but
Yeah, I did. It was the first
Okay.
session. It was a Saturday. It was, I think
and
you were part of it.
Ben is, I think, too new. Is that
That
correct?
was the whole day.
No,
Saturday.
I took it.
Oh,
And
did you?
I was a little delinquent on sending in the proof, but I just did that tonight before the meeting.
Okay, good.
I was able to judge it up.
So we're going to be in good shape. All right, Keith has to go torture himself one more time.
Have fun.
All right, terrific. Fantastic. I'm glad to hear that. And we were talking earlier, got brought up a few times in case somebody out in the audience might object, but we're talking about going to a 7 o'clock start time, starting in January.
No
Is there
problem
anybody-
with it.
Yes.
Sounds good to me.
Good?
Yeah.
All right. I didn't want to go earlier only because there is an issue with people getting home from work and changing and getting ready and doing stuff and then being ready for the meeting, because it's not just us that come before us. So I didn't go to 6:30 and definitely not 6. We do have a few boards in the city that met at 6 and they seem to be dismal failures. Almost nobody ever attended them. Let's see. Training's done. Annual election is up. So every November, annually, we elect a chairperson and a secretary. Those that can vote for the secretary, there's nothing in the statute constraining it. So if you're here, you can vote. If the chairman is put up for a vote, only regular members can vote for the chairperson. So that is Andy, Danielle, Keith, and Lee. So we have 4 regular members. So go ahead and put your nominations forward. All speak at once, you know. Hey.
Well, I was, if you recall from a year ago, I was actually elected chair and decided because of my health at the time not to serve. I'd be willing to put my name in nomination.
Okay. Lee's name is in nomination. Do we have any other nominations? Hearing none. All in favor of Lee, raise your hand. Great, we're done. Lee, congratulations, you're now chairman.
Andy, I will have to sit and talk with you, but thank you, everyone. I promise to do the best job I can, and as I did previously as chair.
And when you're not able to be at a meeting, the secretary is basically the vice chairman, even though the secretary is not called the vice chairman, and has other secretarial duties. So the secretary is voted on by everybody, but it has to be a regular member. So nominations for secretary. Lay it on me. Don't all speak at once. You guys are so quiet tonight.
I'm not a member, so I can't nominate or vote, right?
No, you can on secretary. The statute doesn't preclude it, so I'm just accept that everybody present can vote. But to serve, you've got to be a regular member.
Right, okay, good. Relieves me of that responsibility.
Can staff nominate anyone? Danielle.
I imagine staff.
What are these secretarial duties?
Staff could make a recommendation.
Danielle, you sit and read what's been presented to you.
All right, fine. I could read. I could do the readings.
You can read.
Well, I'm not sure. We're gonna find out.
So Danielle is the only one nominated. Anybody else? Hearing none. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye. And
Aye.
We're all set. Thanks, Tom.
Well, I think it's interesting that the chair and the secretary are both architects.
People are really in for it.
And you're gonna have to constrain yourselves.
I always do.
All right, good.
Now everything comes up for
Mostly. Thank you, Keith. I appreciate that.
So we're all set. Anybody have anything else? Any business that we might have forgotten to cover?
Just when's the ZBA holiday party?
A Zoom party.
That would be a meeting.
We
We have to notice that as a meeting. So just to clarify, for December, we've got everybody. And in December, I'm going to present the calendar to be voted on with the 7
You
o'clock.
have
start.
everybody but Marilyn. Marilyn won't be in.
Oh,
December.
correct.
And what is
At
the
least
date
as far
for
as I know.
December? I don't.
December 21st.
The 21st of December is a Tuesday. It's not Christmas Eve.
No,
So we're meeting on Tuesday instead of a Thursday.
No, the
It's a
21st would
Thursday.
be a Thursday.
Okay.
yeah.
It's a Thursday.
Sorry. It's all right. Mr. Conroy can't handle a calendar.
yeah, but he can chair a meeting.
Yeah, apparently.
Different skill set entirely.
Even though he doesn't know what day of the week it is.
Mhm.
So the 21st is a Thursday, if therefore Friday, the 22nd, the 23rd, the 24th. So the 25th must be a Monday, huh?
It is a Monday, yes.
Cool. Yeah, the 21st, I'd say, is the last practical day to have a meeting as you come before Christmas. After that, there's no point. So everybody is going to come, or you just haven't thought
Yes.
it through?
Yep.
I'll be there.
All right, fantastic. With that, anybody want to adjourn?
I'll make a motion that all of us have a great Thanksgiving and that we adjourn this meeting.
I second.
All right,
I'm in
all in
favor.
favor? Aye.
I
Aye.
And congratulations, Chairman and Secretary, or
Yeah,
Chairperson and Secretary.
I will look forward to your meetings in the future.
Okay, Andy,
Can't wait.
we'll be talking.
Yeah, all righty. You got it.
Thank you, everyone.
I know.
Good night.
Everybody.
Good night.
Thank you, Jen. See you all.